we're back again for another recording. We had took a wee bit of a break there in between the recordings, just the end of summer, but we're back now. And today I'd like to introduce you to Richard and Natalie from, I'm hoping I'm saying it right, Hoddmimirs Crafts. They'll tell me in a second if I've got it wrong. Basically, long story, I have met these lovely couple at a fair and I fell in love with their craft straight away, and it's a really fascinating tale, so I can't wait to be able to share it with you. So, well, how are you keeping?
We're doing quite well, thank you very much, Sinead.
So it's been a wee bit of a while since we last seen you. Pretty much like from COVID, everything has been sort of shut down. So what have you been up to yourselves?
Well, to be honest, just working. Just constantly working. All the extra time in our hands, we had no excuse not to, you know.
Not being able to get out anywhere was a good boost for our creativity.
I think a lot of people were feeling that way. I do know that you definitely went in redesigning and sort of relooking at your business during that, but we'll get to that later on. So basically, who is Hoddmimirs and what are they? Explain to everyone, because it's a fascinating little journey that you have took on with this name.
I'll let you have that one, but it's Hoddmimirs.
You see, I knew I'd said it wrong. I had to put the Lurgan twist on it. We don't say anything properly. We like to make sure that, you know, so in Lurgan slang, you're Hoddmimir, but you are Hoddmimir.
Hoddmimir.
Hoddmimir. There you go. Lesson learned tonight. I was dying to, I knew finally I was going to be told off, because I don't know how many times you've told me off for that and I still say it wrong. But in all fairness, Danann Crafts gets exactly the same thing. So I understand the pain.
It's not really the easiest of names.
So tell us a bit about how did it come about and where did you start?
No, you can feel this one. Go ahead.
Richard was doing reenacting, and it was suggested to him to try Viking reenacting, and it's extremely family friendly. You end up going to a Viking show. After a while, you start wanting to look a bit more like a Viking, so you acquire a bit of clothing. Once you've got a bit of clothing, you need somewhere to put it, so you get an authentic tent, so you can stay beside everyone else. And then when you have a tent, you need a display because you need to do something. Both of us had done woodworking in school, so it was a natural progression on from that. We just started woodworking again, and then started adding the wood burning and the painting and everything else. And just every so often you come up with a new idea.
So were you into the Vikings, or was it sort of where your husband led you astray?
We sort of got into it at the same time, to be honest, because mutual friends of ours were very heavily into it. In fact, Connor's wife, Idle, is from Norway. You know, that's her heritage. So, you know, you were being bombarded by it all the time from them. And like, they're beyond talented people. So,
yeah.
You know, sort of looking at what they were doing and going, well, that's an interesting area we could explore ourselves, which they actively encouraged. And I'm glad they did at this stage, you know, because of where we are without the likes of them.
And then Richard had started doing a bit of woodworking, and I had seen a lot of the wastage. I don't like wastage. I had seen a lot of the offcuts of wood and wasn't terribly happy about them. We didn't have a fireplace then. We do now. That involved me in a sledgehammer, but that's a different story.
Yes.
We might come back to that one.
horrible time in my life.
Here, look, I mean, I can't say anything. Patty went to work in Dublin one day and came down and I took down a stud wall. So, I mean, yeah, some things we just have to do. And yeah, no, like Patter just came, I'll never forget his face that day, but I had just been made redundant and I was bored. So yeah. So I understand that a sledgehammer to a fireplace, and that's created a whole different thing altogether for you. It's nice to know that I'm not on my own.
Yeah, we didn't have a fireplace originally, so we had a lot of offcuts of wood, not really any use for them because we couldn't use them as fire starters, anything else like that. So started doodling on them. I had an old Dremel kit and started messing around with that. And then at some point, somebody suggested to me wood burning. So I gave wood burning a go and discovered that I'm actually slightly artistic.
No, you're very, very good, especially like from the first I've met you. So the very first fair that you ever came to was Oxford Island. And
Yeah.
I knew nothing. All I remember is looking at your table and going, I love that. And I think it was actually one of the very few first fairs that you were really doing away from the Vikings. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I just sort of remember, maybe it was just the first time you were in Oxford Island, or you'd been there with the year before we were part, or 2 years before we were part of a festival.
Yes, there was a Viking festival and they had the boat and all out.
Yeah, and God love you, that was the one time that there was a massive big storm that hit you and you had to be brought inside for safety. Yeah, because it was a real random storm too. It wouldn't have been a normal. As someone who comes from round the loch, I do remember that one very, very distinctly, because none of us even knew if our stuff was still going to be in the tents. But I mean, your designs have came so far on. So like, I know that a lot of the pieces that we had in the store and that I sing was very much involved with sort of Viking goddesses and legends and stuff like that. But you've kept that on, but you've sort of, if I remember correctly, you've sort of also went into sort of like there's animals and stuff appearing a lot more on some of the newer pieces, like the wooden chopping boards, etc.
Yeah, that would be more my side than Richard's.
Yeah.
Basically, over coronavirus, I started learning Norwegian.
Okay.
Which helps me when I'm looking at some of the museums, like the Museum of Oslo and so on. It makes it a lot easier to read through some of the stuff that you're looking at, if you can even get a slight idea of what it is they're talking about. And it's just, I've built up a good library of different patterns and different things that I like. Anything from all of the artwork that we have is art that has been found in Viking graves, on Viking artifacts, on rune stones, on stave churches, different things. It's all lifted. It is all historically accurate. Just not necessarily on the item that it was.
No, but your techniques and stuff, like, you know, I sort of quite like, because I do know a few people that they go very authentic into it, but you do a nice mix of in between, you know, so you're using both skills of both ages. And I think that's the reason why your stuff appeals to me, because some of the items you've had that old worldly feel about it, but you put like this bit of a small modern twist on some of the items that just makes it pop. And the other thing about it too was, I remember there was a plate, and I always loved that plate, and there was a design on it, and it was very interesting because I would know quite a lot about the Celtic mythology and stuff, but it's really interesting. Like, we all know the Vikings invaded Ireland. I mean, whenever my hair is in the sun, like the ginger hair sort of comes out in it, so we're fully aware that they did invade here. But it's really interesting how the Celts and the Vikings, some of their designs actually interlock with each other. And I didn't know that until some of your pieces that you were bringing into me.
Yeah, the Book of Kells would be a big influence on me, because it's probably the clearest example in history of the two different styles of art, the Viking style and the Celtic style. And in fact, when the book was stolen, they're not sure. There are several pages that they believe have been added onto, and they're not actually sure
whose art is whose,
whose art is whose, which art is the Celtic and is the Vikings, because the two of them copied off each other. And then, you know, as they've traveled across Europe, their style has changed dramatically with every other culture they've intertwined with. Something that looks Viking might also look slightly Aztec.
Yeah.
In earlier stuff, there's huge influences from a lot of cultures in Viking artwork.
No, definitely. I mean, I think that's like, I remember like in primary school studying about the Vikings and being very fascinated. I am a person, I love learning about gods, and the Viking and the Celtic gods always have been an influence on me. The reason why Danann Craft is actually named after the goddess Danu. Um, and if I'm correct, in the Viking realm, there is a goddess very similar to Danu. I can't remember their name, but there is a goddess very, very similar to Danu. And I think that's actually really interesting because there is that. I do think that the relationship with the two cultures very much married, and they embraced each other in a real random sort of way. I'm not trying to get lovey-dovey because I can't really get lovey-dovey about it. I think history will tell a different story on that one. But I mean, yeah, like, is there any pieces that you have done that you've loved and you have a gorgeous story to go with it, or a story at all to go with it?
I like doing the pieces I've turned. I really enjoyed turning. We did what do you call it? The Airhouse or Airhouse bowl, which actually was in your shop.
The devil bowl.
Oh God, yeah, I love that one. I really didn't want to part with that one, but I think, yeah, Patter would have killed me if I brought another piece of wooden piece into the house. But sorry, tell the story about that one, because I do love the story with this.
You know, for me making this stuff, I love the piece of wood, the way that it was all knotted and gnarled. And there was actually holes through it, and it was a challenge to turn it and leave it, you know, a smooth finish with just all these pieces breaking out through it, you know, gaps. And you know, people don't realize the challenge it is to try and turn something that's full of holes and gaps and pits, and you know, the grain going in different directions. It reacts completely different to the chisels. So I enjoy doing things like that. And then I think your choice of the image on it just suited the bowl, because the bowl just looked, you know, right for it.
It's a mask that's found in several different aspects in Viking culture. It's found all over the place. It's found on the side of churches. It's found on graves. It's found on that particular one, and that devil bowl is called the Airhouse stone. And it's the most famous example of it. It's found on the side of caskets. It's found on the side of tapestry. It's found everywhere. And it's believed that it's to ward off evil, whether it's to ward off evil from humans or to ward off evil from the gods.
We don't know that bit.
I think there's always that bit of, I think with a lot of crafts, it's always to leave it hanging on a question mark, because then the person can put their own spin on it. But that bowl in particular was gorgeous. And whenever you say knotted, like, some of them was quite narrow and deep, and then there was another one that was quite like close to the surface. Yeah, it was a gorgeous piece, and you had it beautifully finished. Which is, yeah, I mean, it does take an awful lot of craftsmanship. There's only one other person that I know that actually would do that work with roots, and like, I know that they have told me the pain that goes into it, because one wrong movement and you've just created a disaster, and whether or not you can come back from it is a different story. So, and you had it absolutely. It was a gorgeous piece. And like, apart from, because I know that you do a few different things, so you also do chalices too with the Celtic, or sorry, not the Celtic, but Viking inspired. So is there any other ranges that you've brought out? Because I know you've been working very hard over COVID to bring out, because yous actually got affected quite heavily by COVID.
Oh, we did indeed, yeah. Right at the start, we both got more or less within months of each other got made redundant, you know. So
but it's not a sub story. It was the kick we needed to do this full time, which we'd wanted to step towards, but had always been a bit apprehensive about leaving nice, secure employment to do so.
Yeah, basically, it was a scary step.
But we're still here.
Still here. I'm working away, as you say, new lines and new products. Like we have friends who are silversmiths. He makes a beautiful range of Viking bracelets, which I get pewter ones off him and use as handles. So we do half pint oak tankards with a pewter handle on them.
I haven't seen that range now.
Yeah.
How have I missed that one?
I don't know.
Actually, I want to write that down, actually.
I'll send you a picture.
Oh, you're going to have to, because I don't know how I missed that one.
So not only is the tankard design itself a design found, from a Viking find, but the handle is authentic, Viking design for an arm ring. So we've married those two together. As you're saying about the modern pieces, we've been doing charcuterie boards and chopping boards, and expanding the range that way. And again, we're utilizing our art to try and make them unique, because you can't find them, but
No, and I think you play this down that, we'll put a wee bit of a spin on it. I mean, you had a chopping board that was absolutely stunning. And it had a very Book of Kells type of, I actually think I messaged you straight away going, oh my God, that is absolutely beautiful.
The heavy, intricate one from memory, I think the one you're talking about was the design that was found on a necklace.
Yes.
Well, the first older one I made, the wood was older and the finish in the necklace,
Yeah, it was absolutely, like, I have to say, these two are very chilled here tonight. And to me, they're slightly playing down how actually good that they are. I mean, because it's we just do these things, and it's all quite. But honestly, do check out their page, because I do love following them. They are a very exciting couple. There's not that many husband and wife crafting teams work with great success. I'm not going to say that it's happy all the time, because I mean, it wouldn't be fair on the rest of us to say that you are happy all the time. But I do know the amount of work that you put in and what you do. And I love the fact that it's a Viking element, because I know with Ireland, we have been a country that has had quite a lot of different cultures, in the past, sort of like invade our island, and they've brought bits and pieces of their culture, but the Viking culture in particular never really sort of went away. And I do feel that it still lingers. And the idea that I know that you're not the only crafter that I'm aware of, because I spoke to you before of another man in Wexford, who I'd be very close with, and he does a lot of the stuff in the south. And I just love the fact that there is all of these villages that do travel around Ireland. And whenever I seen it in Lough Neagh, I was unaware of it. And I do find it fascinating, because once you go out and you get seeing, and yous are very traditional in what yous are doing. And then the promotion, like, go over and talk to any one of yous, and yous are very quick to tell us about the culture, and about, like as I was saying, like, I just remember looking at that bowl with the devil on it and going, like, that's quite disturbing. And then you told me the story, and I was like, actually, I love that, because Ireland's a nation of storytellers, and we love a story. We love something that has a story, and used to are fantastic about creating something that has an amazing story with it. So
not the best people to ask.
No,
The best people to ask would be our two daughters, Rose and Phaedra. If you come and see us demonstrating at a Viking event,
we don't get to talk. They do all the talking.
Yeah. Rose is sitting on the draw horse, and she will demonstrate how to use a draw knife. Phaedra's generally sitting with one of my chisels
on a whetstone.
On a whetstone, and she'll tell people how to sharpen them and why she's doing it and why she's moving it. And between the two of them, we don't get a word in.
Yeah.
But do you know what? But it's not brilliant, because you know what? They're earning their keep.
Well, we keep getting told, oh, you can't do that, child labour laws. It doesn't exist, Yous
are going traditional. Back then, they would have been out foraging and having to provide for their own dinners. So you're meeting halfway. But going down the line, the wood turning. So do you use a lathe, or do you also use traditional methods also?
I do both. If we're at a show, I'll have the pole lathe set up so people can see how it was done traditionally. And it is, like it does seem to fascinate the public quite a lot.
Yeah, it's quite a simple machine, but it's extremely easy to use. It just takes a long time. Where you might make a bowl on an electric lathe and it takes about 2.5 hours start to finish for a simple shape. The same shape that you're trying to make on a pole lathe can take 7 to 8 hours.
Yeah.
Just the difference in speed. Now, the pole lathe with being pole sprung, you can only work on the forward stroke. The pole brings it back to the start position, and then you bring it down, work it again, back up, work it back up. But modern lathe, obviously, it's just constantly spinning towards you. So you're able to just work it all the time. And that's where the difference. But the design of the lathes
Haven't changed.
Hasn't changed. The one I demonstrate is from the 11th century. And I could take it, just put my motor on it, and I have the lathe I have out in my workshop. That's all done, so it is fascinating. I like the history of the pole lathes as well, because when you're talking about Vikings, when they traveled, they couldn't take all their apparatus with them. So I found examples where the guys just basically turned up with 2 metal spikes, found a branch suitable between 2 trees, drove the spikes into the tree, mounted the piece he wants to work with, and tied the rope to the branch above, and then just worked it on the trees.
And in fact,
it's exactly the same.
The last recorded commercial use of a pole lathe in the UK was in around about 1939-ish.
Wow.
In Reading.
Yeah.
That's the last time a full-scale commercial production lathe.
Yeah,
pole lathe
production pole lathe was in use.
Still in use now with people like ourselves who demonstrate it, and we make things from it as well. But
the guy that had that, I don't know what he had for arms, because he did what we call bowl coring, right? Where traditionally you would just hollow a bowl out. So you had one piece of wood, you get one bowl. Whereas he would bore into it, and then bore into it maybe an inch further in, and then bore into it again. You would get 3 bowls out of the one piece.
Which is less wastage and much more work.
Much more work. But he's doing it on a pole lathe, right? If I was to try and bowl core on modern lathe, I would need something that would be at least 1.5 horsepower in the motor. So how he was forcing that through just with his arms, beyond my comprehension. But he was doing it, so sometimes the old ways are better.
It just fascinates me, like the idea that like traditional means, like, I mean, 1939, okay, whenever you really put it into perspective, 1939, I keep thinking that we're still not in, like, it's 2021, so it's nearly 100 years ago whenever you really think about it, but it just feels like it was only a couple of years ago. But like, yeah, I mean, like 1939, wow, that is...
That was the last commercial use of that was slightly after our house was built.
God, I mean, yeah, my granny was only 2.
But it's something that should get people that will come over to you and they'll stand and they'll chat. It's obviously it's a constant draw for people, and you will get people coming over trying to help you and trying to suggest that if you added a bit here or put a bit there or mounted it on a pulley system, so on. But then you're moving a couple of centuries,
out of period,
a couple of 100 years out of Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think people want to be helpful, but sometimes it's the understanding, and I think that's what I really like about what you both are trying to do, because
we absolutely people coming to talk to us.
Yeah, but I think without having people like yourselves educating people in the craft, there's an awful lot of crafts that are dead, they're gone, or they're dying, out. And I love the idea, like wood laving, like it just seems to be, wood laving has seemed to have had such an inflow of people doing it now, because you can buy wee small lathes for £100-200 that you can just set on top of your table, so you can knock things out very, very quickly, as you were saying. But whenever you go into the history of the different types of lathes and the wood, they're the things that we need to restore. They're the things that we need to let people understand, like, yeah, it's great technology now, yes, you can go in and You could go and have like a fur that you're get wiped out, and within 2 weeks you'll have full stock again, like that's if you don't sleep. But
Yeah, if we don't sleep.
I think is of all, it's coming up to that time of the year where no crafter is allowed to sleep. So everybody now, it's like, yeah, September is breathing space. October, it's panic mode. November, yeah, just bring on Christmas Day. And then Christmas Day, you just sleep. It does nothing else happens. But have you anything exciting planned in the coming months?
Oh, show-wise, we're more or less booked at fairs every weekend at the minute. I think the most exciting one for us personally coming up is just outside Downpatrick.
There's a Viking village called Ballydugan. It's called Ballydugan Medieval Village, and it's the only village I'm aware of. It's a mile outside Downpatrick. It's the only village I'm aware of that's an actual Viking replicated settlement.
Yeah, and it's right on the lake as well. So it's really nice venue. But we're going down there for the Samhain Festival, which is the Halloween festival. We're going to be there that weekend in full kit, doing our bit and pieces amongst fellow minded, like.
And do you have people. Dates for that, just so then people, if they are wanting to go to it, like they can schedule it down in their diaries?
And the 30th, I think it's the 30th and 31st of October, but we'll just double check that now.
Yeah, I think that's a Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
Because you have it on your diary.
Yeah, unfortunately, the diary's in the office.
It's nice whenever the person asking questions puts you on the spot. And then we're talking very much about Viking, and then the mobile phones come out.
If you give us a minute, we'll grab the exact.
No, don't worry. Don't worry. Is there? Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
When you're talking about skills being lost and trades being lost and so on, it's one of the things we actually enjoy about being involved with by doing Vikings, is that out of all that, we love every show we do, but we love the Viking shows the most, because when you're actually doing them, once the public's went home, you end up chatting to somebody, you learn how to make a type of flatbread, you learn how to do a bit of embroidery, you learn how to smelt silver in the sand, you learn how to do a number of crafts. And we're both lucky because we do a lot of traditional handcrafting. If there's a power cut, we can still work.
Yeah, exactly. But I was right, the 30th and 31st of October, they're in their festival.
There you go. I will post up the details regarding that, because I do recommend for anyone, if you haven't been to anything like this, I would say for you to go down to it. Like, I wish that I have been to a lot more recently, but the joys of being a small business owner, you don't always get the chance to do these things, but that will be on our books to go down and get seeing yous. But yeah, I do get where you're coming from, the idea that I think even going to craft fairs and stuff, the one thing that you always find is that people are loving to share and talk about their creations and their makes, and you get the best of both worlds. So you are going and doing markets where it's quite modern, and then you go and you do the Viking villages, which isn't modern, but it's the upkeep of traditions, and I think that's amazing. Like, I mean, that for a history buff like me that absolutely loves that, I do, like, I mean, yeah, you actually do inspire me, because anytime I get talking to you, you always teach me something new. There's always something, like, for instance, the name of your business being one of them. I will still probably call it Hoddmimirs, because I am unfortunately one of those people who never get names right, no matter what. And I was even nearly panicking calling you Natasha and Natalie tonight for some reason. I had Natasha in my head.
It's all right. My own mum's called me Natasha before, so.
Oh no! Normally I get all my brothers' names before it even comes to me, and the dead dog and cat, like, so. Yeah. So at least I was close enough to it. But The one thing we haven't actually talked a lot, well, we have sort of touched on it, is that a lot of your items are actually, there is a bit of an ethical background in it. And I know we've picked up on it, but I like to emphasize this to people because a lot of crafters now, especially people like yourselves, are trying to make sure that nothing gets left behind. Everything gets reused, repurposed. Is there anything that you have done that you've sort of like maybe started or made and then you've repurposed into something else, or even explain like the processes of your creations, with that ethical background?
Yeah.
Jewelry.
Jewelry, necklaces, you actually had some of them. Bowl that wrong. I just like the shape, the exterior shape of the bowl. I just went, no, those will make nice necklaces. So that was then immediately, rather than scrapped, immediately purposed into necklaces.
Well, when he says he means me.
Well, yeah, you do the design. I never argued with that. You do designs. I still had to cut them into the shapes, but that was repurposed that way. Any spare wood, we do really simple things for the general public, likes of soap dishes. It's a mundane item, but
rings from shavings, and there's everything. We're both from incredible. We both have very thrifty, reused, reduced, recycled fathers.
Yeah.
Nothing gets thrown out. There's always 100 uses for everything.
Yeah, like the soap dishes themselves are made out of recycled wood. So if any spare pieces of wood left over, I go, okay, that's enough to make it with one of the soap dishes. And then that gets made that way. Nothing, quite early, nothing goes to waste.
Yeah. This phone's balanced on a little box of bits that I'll find a use for at some point.
No,
sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
We don't like waste, like even at the minute. And another new thing we were trying, I'm making out of rounded bits that are left over from coring out rings. I'm starting to make beads so we can use them for necklaces as well. Just trying to cut down on the waste,
Everything has a purpose. Even the sawdust gets reused. The sawdust gets used as filler. It gets used as, it gets rolled with wax and turned into fire starters. Everything is used. Some of the shavings go to friends with nearby farms for their animals. We don't throw out anything unless we have to, basically.
And even the materials we use, like our fellow friends, we have friends who are beekeepers, so the beeswax we use to finish the products comes from them. So they're reusing that, and then we're reusing it again. We hate waste. That's it.
No, but you know what? I know I keep emphasizing, but I think that is what sort of like, there is crafters. Yes, there is crafters who does do a lot, but you take it to a different level, and you take it to a different level, like the likes of, I didn't know about the beeswax. There was another thing that I knew that you did do a lot of things. I know you told me about the fire starters and all in the past, but like the idea that the bowls, you probably have told me, because there's that many products sometimes comes in, and then I just get excited about the box that you just leave, and it's like, oh, this is so exciting. But it is like the idea that, like the wax is local, that you even put onto it, it's just keeping everything. And that's what I think people, I'm actually going to bring up a topic here, because I know we have talked about this in the past, and it's some people have heard my little rant on Facebook, because I get pulled still walking down the street going fair play, or you should take more into consideration. But what you have just told me about the items, there's an awful lot of time and energy goes into a product. Trying to price a product that you do isn't easy, because sometimes an item that could be so small could have maybe a full day's work in it compared to a larger bowl. Yes. Do you struggle a bit? Like, how do you feel about craft fairs? Because I do know that, I think it was in Oxford Island, there was someone who did try to haggle, but they weren't even haggling in a nice way. They were haggling at a very low region for one of your items. And I love that you actually stood your ground, because Some people give in very, very quickly, and it's not a negative thing. I think that's so positive, because whenever you put craftsmanship into it, you have to make sure that it matches the price. But
Yeah,
tell me your stories about craft fairs and your pricing strategies, because I think people need to hear this.
I generally have a very simple approach to that when they start haggling me, or we've had the old one, but you can buy that in IKEA for £5. You're not going to buy what I've made in IKEA for £5, but that's irrelevant. I approach it with them. I go, well, that took me 3 hours to make. Would you agree? Look at the intricacy of it. And they go, yeah. I said, what do you think is a fair hourly rate if you're working a job? And generally most people say between £10 to £15 an hour. That's what they think is. I said, well, that's 3 hours work. I said, so I'm looking £30 for that bowl. And you've just told me £10 an hour is fair enough. And that's just for my labor. So that's not including the costs and my expertise and all the outlays I've had as a small business. Yeah, all that. And they stand there, it takes a wee minute from it put it around in their head. One of the best responses we ever had was from one of our friends. Person was haggling with them about they could buy the same sort of linen shirt in a shop. She says, but not be handmade, but it's still linen. He says, surely you give it to me for the same price. So this particular individual came out with just the linen and a bolt, a needle and a thread, and said, there's what you get for the price you want. He said, you want it made, then come back and talk to me.
And I did the same as well, actually. Once I had somebody try and offer me £5, I think it was, for a bowl that we had that was considerably more than £5. And I don't mind people politely. I don't mind if people don't realize how much time and effort goes into actually handcrafting. I don't mind talking. I don't mind helping people understand just that how much of what they do is actually done completely with love on our part, for more so than money half the time. But when people get slightly aggressive about it, it's extremely off-putting, because it's part of you. And this particular individual was getting quite extremely aggressive with me, saying that he could go down to TK Maxx and buy the same bowl for the same price. And sure, it's just a lump of wood. That's all it is. It's just a lump of wood. So I took his money and handed him a lump of wood from the fire pit, and told him that if he wanted to go and make a bowl, he could. I've just given him the wood. Now he can go and make a bowl. That's the easy part.
Yeah, I think the underlying thing is that they're not just paying for the product. What they're paying for is our years of experience of every failure we've had to understand what not to do to get the product to the point that they want. For somebody to come along and do the same thing fresh out of the box, they're not going to achieve that within days or weeks, or unless they're corner. But that's he's just he's up there. The people are genuinely paying for your experience more than your product. That's what the bottom line is. Really, I think they're paying for your experience more than the product.
Yeah, in our case, they're paying for the combination of our experiences.
Yeah, the product's just an example of what we're capable of and what we've learned. They haven't learned that, so they couldn't do it themselves, and that's why they come to somebody. If they want bespoke, unfortunately, in this day and age, they have to pay a reasonable price for it, because it does take time.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't disagree with anything that you said there, and that's actually something that I even in the shop and even Messenger. I find messengers, whenever people tend to haggle much, because they're not face to face, so they have that wee bit more. They think they can say whatever they want via messenger, and they're not sort of understanding. Like, I mean, I know that there was 2 or 3 items, and I'm not going to state who they are or what they were, because it would make it very obvious who the crafter was, crafters even. But I know that on a few times, we've had that, oh, but I could get it in Tesco's, and I was like, well, if you can get it in Tesco's, you go get it in Tesco's, bring it back here, and I will exchange for you if that's the one that you're wanting for. I will refund you. I will match the difference. But and they never ever do come back. On Messenger, it seems to be a going trend. It seems to be a going trend that they feel like they can say whatever they want. And whenever they don't get their own way, they're very quick. Well, I'm going to leave a negative review, which is so unfair. because I mean, for me, I adore crafts. I love crafts. It's my passion, the reason why I started this business.
Of course.
And then I can't tolerate going back to use and turn around and say, oh, by the way, you know that bowl that you have, it's £65. Someone wants to buy it for 15. Is that okay?
No.
I know the answer to that question before I've even finished the sentence. But I do think that it's a level of misunderstanding, because everybody is so used to now that they can go into the likes of Debenhams and they can go in and they get all of these like handcrafted or hand painted items. And I am doing that because, I mean, it could have been one dot of white paint or a press of a stamp. That's not hand painting. I have seen like use are a couple that definitely goes into detail with all of your items. That's the reason why I really wanted to do this podcast with you, is because I loved how you married the two trends together. You know, one of you is a wood turner, the other one does all of the designs in the wood burning, and you come out with a beautiful piece, and it's just such a balanced product. And but people don't understand with crafts, because I did have this conversation in an earlier podcast. I want to say Kieran Hadley, and he said exactly the same thing. Whenever you're buying his product, you're buying maybe 3 mugs that have already blew up in the kiln before the one that he wanted has turned out. You know, there was already probably more than what you're actually paying. So if your mug is £12, he's probably it's already cost him £12 to get that mug, one mug at £12. Like I said to you, it's like wood turning a bowl. One slip of your chisel and you've just altered, you know, that bowl. Some people can save it, some people can't.
Yeah.
You know.
It's like if I'm sculpting something out of clay, if I make a mistake, I can replace the piece and then just keep going. Wood, you can't replace the piece. So, well, and that's how some of the designs we end up with actually come about. If I make a mistake, you're saying about repurposing something, if I make a mistake, I have to stop, reevaluate the piece and go, how can I incorporate that into it now? Yeah. And as you say, rescue the piece. And that's how I come up with, sometimes I end up having to get the texturing tool out, and I'll texture the outer layer of the bowl, which will remove the mistake. And then I've got a completely different product than I originally started off thinking I was going to make, you know. So you can rescue them,
and you can change them, because similarly, Richard's maybe went off to do a bowl, and I've had a design that I'm absolutely 100% going to do on this bowl. And then when he brings it in and shows it to me, the grain doesn't sit right, or there's a knot in the middle, or something's just going to affect the pattern and it's not going to work. And then you have to sit and think, what other pattern will work with it? What other design have I got? What else can I do? What else will make this? And rather than trying to work around or hide knots, I would prefer to incorporate the grain, any grains, any knots, any whorls in the wood, because that's the beauty of the wood.
It is.
And that's better than anything I can do.
I do. You can, when I'm turning and she's burning, I can be quite mischievous if I want to. Like, there's a few times he's sitting waiting the pyrographs on, I'll bring her in a burr, which the grain goes every direction in. You know what a burr is like. It twists and spins and swirls and goes this way. And she just looks at it inside. And I
can't say it would be a piece that I would be looking forward to doing a pyrography thing in, as someone who has only toyed with pyrography, not even to the same standard as you. Yeah, I wouldn't have. I know I wouldn't have the confidence to even.
Oh, have a go, have a start. It's nothing. It's not about confidence. If you do a bit and it doesn't work, you've just burnt a bit of wood, sand it back and start again.
Yeah, I love watching people's reactions when you get the same results with the hot irons at a show as you do with the.
Oh yeah. For a lot of low level lasers, I can actually do higher quality and more detail than a lot of low level lasers. Now that will change in time. Laser technology is getting better every day. But at the minute, pyrography is holding its own very, very nicely against lasercraft.
I think it always will, because as you just said there, I mean, it's the detail that you can put into pyrography. laser will pick up on so much, like, and as someone who does a lot of bespoke pieces with 2 or 3 different laser men, I mean, yes, it's a cleanness and all the rest that you get with it, but whenever whenever you put it up against a hand-drawn, hand-designed piece, the detailing in it, you're never going to match, on a laser machine, because even the depth, like, you'd have to be so confident that your laser machine can really hit the depths for the textured. Like, I'm actually trying to remember, and I'm hoping that, like, there was a chopping board with a rabbit or a bird. Maybe that's a bird again. And I just remember that you'd got the textures on it, and it just brought it to life. And even the line drawn, there was, it's a different type of cleanness.
Yeah, it's the shading. The lasers will burn at one level, so you have what I would refer to as a 2-dimensional image.
Yeah.
But when you burn by hand, you can add in the shadings and shadows and all the
highlights. I can choose whether I'm going darker. If the wood will sometimes throw up difficulties as well. I joined porography groups, and immediately realized that, at least according to all the porography groups, I'm doing everything wrong. They're all working on very, very flat grained woods. They're avoiding what they would term as difficult woods, and the stuff that they avoid and class as bad woods for porography is the stuff I'm working with every day.
Beeches and oaks and things like that, but that's because you're using what I have.
And ashes and pine are all woods I actually like burning on. Every wood has its own wee character. You just learn what its particular character is. It's a novelty for me to actually sit and burn on a flat piece of extremely plain wood that doesn't have any knots in it.
But then again, that's one of the advantages, Sinead, I think, of being self-taught. We're both self-taught. Nobody sat down and showed us. Nobody's ever told us we can't.
Yeah.
Because I've had people come up to me in the show going, "Oh, how did you make that?" And I explained to them how I've made it, and they go, "That shouldn't have worked." Now, ta-da! They go, "No, that shouldn't have worked." Ta-da! But no, and you're like, "But it's there in front of you. That's how I did it." But that shouldn't work because they've been told that doesn't work. Do this, but we've never been told that. So I think as long as nobody keeps telling us we can't do something, we'll just keep doing it.
Yeah, we both experiment a lot. I make a lot of natural wood stains using beetroots, using onion skins, using different things. I
love how you've just threw this into it. Like, what?
These are
where did this come from?
we both just play around with different things to find out how they're going to work.
Yeah, like I spoke my own wood. So you ever see a piece of spalted beech? I haven't bought that.
No, I didn't realize. Now, as someone who has, my whole background has been involved with, as a kitchen designer before I started this, I done all of my A-level work was pretty much all in wood turning. So I love wood, but I didn't know that you could actually spalt your own wood up until 3 weeks ago. And a guy turned, "Oh no, this is how you do it, Sinead." And I was like, "What?" And I was like, "What?" And I actually, and the worst of it is, right, I'm going back years. I was, unfortunately, I was one of them people that lost their job in 2008 whenever the whole construction industry fell flat. But before that, I was doing a massive big kitchen design, and we had these doors, and they came in spalted. Now, they were natural doors, but I remember like the guy who ordered them, very, very, very renowned businessman, and he wanted the doors more spalted. And after he told me that 3 weeks ago, he goes,
you could have done it, yeah.
Yeah.
We have a big environment in this country to spalt wood.
Yeah. So I learned 3 weeks ago. But that's what I love about talking to people with wood. It's such a natural material. It's on our doorstep. Ireland, we're full of it. Between that and green fields, we've got it, well, nearly in abundance. And yet there's still techniques, like you've just said, like about the spalted wood, about, you know, the different techniques that you can do. And like, even in this conversation, I don't know how much you've actually taught me tonight, you know, but yet actually, do you know what? Sort of tell people how you spalt wood, because it's so simple. It's not even an overly complicated technique.
You chuck it in the corner.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
that is literally it. I mean,
just need somewhere where there's moisture, and let it dry, and more moisture.
Moisture, but not direct moisture. Yeah.
You basically you need to be able to build up a layer of mold on the wood, and the mold itself will spalt the wood for you. But you have to be very careful how long you let it sit for, because you can get past the perfect point, and then it becomes what we refer to
very
punky, where it's like a sponge. You can't work with it.
It's when it's very soft and spongy, and you put your finger against it.
You could actually just break it up like that, you know. Yeah. But, we spelt our own wood.
No. We dye it too.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
With beetroot, so I've learned tonight. See, beetroot is good on everything. I don't care what people say. But actually, you were saying about your dyes. So you use beetroot, and you use what else to make your stains?
Skins.
Wire wool. Wire wool distilled in vinegar. Yeah.
Yeah, but a basic ebonizing solution is vinegar and rusty nails.
Yeah.
And that will give you a lovely black. Ammoniac fluids for fuming it, which gives you a lovely
lemon juice.
Dark brown. Oh yeah, lemon juice. Lemon juice will give you a lovely dark brown to a black as well. Lots of different things. It depends on what's called the tannin level in the wood. Yeah. If you have a wood with a particularly high tannin level, like oak will take dark shade very, very easily. It'll go black very, very easily if you know how to draw out the reaction.
Well, I can get oak to tanninize on the lathe just by applying heat. It'll just turn. I'm not actually burning the wood. It's just going blacker for me, you know. So it's
And just for anybody who actually is listening, that they're hearing tannin and they're automatically thinking wine, that is literally where tannin comes from. The tannin is actually basically what absorbs it, the wine absorbs from the wood in. So whenever you've got oh god, that's real, there's an awful lot of tannin. Yeah, that's because it's been in an oak barrel sitting somewhere. So that's where that whole tannin comes from. Sorry, I do have my wine certificates, and it's really interesting because again, I didn't know that until I done my wine course and went, wood has came into effect again. Wood basically rules the earth. it's an amazing, but I think that is, you know, like it's an amazing adaptable, but that's a different podcast for another day. But guys, I know I could sit on here all night and chat to the two of you, because I know when you come into the shop, I think the last day, Richard, you came in and was probably the shortest time you've ever spent in the shop, because Sinead had a stress head on that day, and you actually managed to get in and out of the shop within 10-15 minutes, which was a rarity, because normally whenever you come down to the shop, like an hour and a half, and then you are half running out the door saying that you have to pick up your children, which I know that is a bloody excuse. You're not needing to collect the children. But thank you so much for doing this podcast. And as always, it's been enlightening and educational. And if anybody wants to know more about them, you can check out. Do you just want to say your name properly so I don't get it wrong?
It's Hoddmimirs Woodcraft.
Hoddmimirs. In Lurgan, it's Hoddmimirs Woodcraft. They're on Facebook. We'll have it all in our bios anyway for you to go and check out. They have stools in the shop. There's not that many of them, but hopefully by the time we get this out, there'll be more on order. But yeah, honestly, guys, if you want something very, very special, this pair are definitely a couple that you can go and buy off, and you'll find them in most markets going at the weekends. But if you do want to check out them in their natural habitat, so on the Saturday and Sunday, the 30th and 31st of August, you're going to be in, where was it again?
Ballydugan medieval settlement.
And it's in October.
In October. So there you go. So again, we will make sure that wee bio goes out. I know I'll be definitely putting that into my diary this time and making sure that we get down to it. So and that is a live Viking camp, so they can see everything and meet the two girls who actually run the show. But thank you again, and yeah, just thank you so much. It was a really, really lovely evening.
Yeah, we loved it too. So anytime, Sinead.